wilderness. Exile. They are two words that describe our situation in life, sometimes. When people encounter wilderness in their life journey or some type of harsh period of exile, then we search for a meaning and direction in life that will give us hope and a light of peace. The two candles burning on this first and second week of Advent. And so we ask you the question, church, what brings you the most peace in your life right now? When we wander in the wilderness, when life is bleak and stark, we desperately search for something to give us meaning and purpose in life. And maybe you can think back in your life at some times when you have felt lost, alone, wandering, without direction. And so, as people of faith, we know that we turn to God because God is a higher power, a voice of wisdom. And we learn that true peace comes when we remember that we are not in control, but God is. It's a beautiful gift in life to know and to desire God as a companion on our journey in life, and to turn to each other as companions along with us. Mother Teresa once said, "If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. If we have no peace, it's because we have forgotten that we belong to each other." In my introduction to Old Testament at Phillips Theological Seminary, my professor, Dr. Glenn Rose, had our class read the novel Night, written by Elie Wiesel, who was a survivor of the Holocaust. It was background reading for the class as we ventured into the study of Israel's exile in Babylon. Night is a powerful, moving story of a Jewish adolescent boy who was taken with all the other Jews that lived in his small village of Siget in Hungary. They were taken to the Nazi concentration camp at Auschwitz. Later, after transfer to Buchenwald, the boy watched as his parents, along with his younger sister, along with the people that he had grown up with and loved, walked into the gas chambers, never to see them again. And he writes, "Never shall I forget that first night, the first night in camp, which has turned into one long night, 7 times cursed and 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget that smoke. Never shall I forget the faces of little children whose bodies I saw turned into wreaths of smoke beneath a silent sky. Never shall I forget those flames which consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget that nocturnal silence which deprived me for all eternity of the desire to live. Never shall I forget those moments which murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to dust. Never shall I forget these things. Never." The novel was actually an autobiography. Wiesel grew up full of the stories and beliefs of Judaism. He grew up a joyful child, full of study and full of singing the faith. But his adolescent years in Auschwitz and Buchenwald left him with a heart full of ashes. The stories were ripped from his heart, his faith exterminated from his spirit. 3 years after I graduated from Phillips, I had the opportunity to listen to Dr. Wiesel speak of his experience at the National Workshop for Christians and Jews, held in St. Louis in 1985. The pain was still on his face. For Wiesel, life was a continuous journey through the wilderness, yearning for the presence of a God that seemed so absent always in his life. A life in exile held captive by the smoldering ashes of Auschwitz and Buchenwald, where his loved ones walked into the gas chambers. Yet, in God's absence, faith became present, as Wiesel became one of the greatest prophets of peace in modern times. A life of wandering in the wilderness leaves people numb. It leaves us afraid. And it leaves us feeling very lonely. In the wilderness, God seems absent, and our world seems out of control, chaotic, and it seems that it's very difficult to find sense or direction in anything, and resources are unbelievably hard to find. In the beginning of the 6th century BCE, more specifically 586, Babylon defeated the southern kingdom of Judah and destroyed much of Jerusalem. Babylonia herded 10,000 people across the desert wilderness, 700 miles to their new home in prison. In the Lamentations of Jeremiah, the prophet goes through this disaster over and over, recounting it 5 times in excruciating detail. Jeremiah talks about the rape, the humility, the mockery, the sacrilege, the starvation, and worst of all, the cannibalism of young children, because people were so hungry. That, forever, was the defining moment in Israel's life as a people. And all of our biblical stories revolve around exile in Babylon. And then 500 years later, exile from Roman oppression. Amid the wilderness times of our life, amid the deserts that we wander through, amid the night of darkness that falls upon us, hope emerges. That is good news. The anonymous prophet known as 2nd Isaiah, who wrote the chapters 40 through 55 of the book of Isaiah, emerges in the decades following the Babylonian invasion like a healing, life-creating song. And his poetry, his voice, his vision seeks to bring life back to a people who have been crushed under a shroud of death and destruction. Isaiah sings, "Comfort, comfort my people." That's his call for faith and character in the face of despair and hopelessness. And Isaiah promises that a transformation, a revelation of God is coming, that old things will pass away and the new will come. That fear will become courage and weakness will become strength. And Isaiah says, every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground will be made plain, and the rough places level. Isaiah bears witness to God's comforting character and actions, not only in times of crisis, not only in times of sorrow, but in the everyday struggles and stresses of life. God's presence brings comfort. God's presence brings peace. And Isaiah challenges the Hebrew slaves of Jerusalem to see a different world. Isaiah proclaims that life will be better for them in the future, that Jerusalem will be restored and the temple will be rebuilt. And so Isaiah says, get ready, folks. Get ready. Make the way straight, because help is on its way. I believe that wilderness times touch all of us. I know it has for me, and I know it has for you as well. In fact, sometimes our very world seems like a huge wilderness. And I watch the scenes on TV about the wildfires burning in California, and literally, it's a fiery hell on earth. I remember that Hurricane Maria slammed into Puerto Rico like a buzzsaw and changed everything from one end of that island to another in the course of just hours. Gone were Puerto Rico's airports and roads. 80% of the island's crops were destroyed, and almost all of the cell towers fallen due to this terrific hurricane. Maria is what happens with 1 degree of Celsius of global warming. 1 degree. And we are currently on the path of 3 to 4 degrees increase in Celsius. Our wilderness is found on the streets of our cities and in our small towns, or even in our homes, because the opioid epidemic is our national health crisis. The New York Times reports that drug overdoses are now the leading cause of death for people 50 years older, 50 years and younger. In 2016, just last year, opioid deaths were more than the HIV/AIDS epidemic at the peak in 1995. An estimated 100,000 people die every year from alcohol-related causes, making it the third leading cause of preventable death in the United States. 17% of men and 8% of women will be dependent on alcohol in their lifetime. Wilderness surrounds us. We get fired from our jobs. Many young people are victims of social media, and suicide among the young are on the rise. Violence is never far from any of us. Our loved ones fall victim to cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, and all kinds of mental and physical handicaps. We've wept from our loved ones being taken in car accidents. We've waded through divorce and problems with our children. Yes, church, you and I have spent our time in the wilderness. And maybe for some of us, it's not even about to be over. There is light. There is hope. And there is peace. Today we continue our Advent journey. It's a journey of our soul toward God, and into the wilderness of our hearts and into the deserts of our despair. Someone is coming. Someone who will deliver us from the wilderness of our lives. Peace will quiet the storms of our lives, and and our tears will be transformed into tears of joy and homecoming, because someone is coming. Someone is coming who will bring change and transformation of life as we know it, so we can get on with life as God wills it. As we gather around the table of our Lord, we eat the bread. It's like manna in the wilderness for us. It sustains us for the journey ahead. And we lift and drink from the cup that refreshes and gives life to the desert of our lives. And as we drink, as we eat, we know the presence of God is with us, that hope and peace are realities in each one of our lives. We offer you an invitation today to journey with this God whom we journey with, our companion in life. We ask you to become a part of a community that seeks to reach out to our neighbors with peace and with lots and lots of words of hope.